Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is a talk video. We've got our next marquee character coming tomorrow, Zorii Bliss. We've let her kit digest overnight and we're ready for our analysis breakdown. As always, insights, synergies, with a wrap-up on my free-to-play gearing. Zorii Bliss is a support scoundrel who fits into the Resistance and Smuggler factions, and although the Resistance synergy will be paramount, don't sleep on the Smuggler usage. These synergies are notably not misleading, but we'll cover those later in the video. Right now we're going to start with the key attributes and strategy tips portion of the insights. With the key attributes, stealth will be important, major exposed functionality, boost tanks, and she has debuff mechanics to manage. With strategy tips, it's going to be important to keep her in stealth. That is further emphasized, and the timing of her abilities related to that stealth mechanic. That's a big signal that she's going to be better on offense. AI will probably not use and time her abilities correctly. The basic Twin E851 blasters physical damage twice to the target. If she is stealth, attack can't be evaded and dispel target. For each dispelled buff, resistance allies will recover 10% health. So any dispel on a basic is powerful, even though this one is conditional, but it's augmented with the faction heal. This could be really robust up against the right targets and buff heavy factions where it could be a near full health recovery, like the Jedi, Rebels, First Order. This could add a lot of survivability to the Resistance faction. The first special, Captain's Medallion. This is a 4-turn cooldown ability. That's probably going to be pretty important. AoE cleanse on the Resistance. Resistance allies gain 5% turn meter for each debuff cleansed. That's part of the point that she kind of likes debuffs that was alluded to in the insights portion. The more they get, the faster she makes her squad. Non-unaligned force user resistance tanks, so basically no raise, taunt, and gain protection up. Zorii gains stealth for 2 turns and resistance allies mass assist. So this kit has a lot of complicated ways to say Finn, and it might allow for some possibility of using other leaders or another leader coming along in the future, but really it's just talking about Finn for all intents and purposes right now in the game. So this is a powerful ability, but it has a huge cooldown. Timing for maximum benefit will be important, since she will be spending time unstealthed, where she will have her efficacy decreased. But the conditions with this special start narrowing the focus of where I think we can be using Zorii, because with the basic, I alluded to a few factions that are buff heavy, which she could be making the resistance more survivable by dispelling buffs. But a few of those squads, like the Rebels or the Jedi, they're not debuff heavy, and without the debuffs being applied, we're not getting the boost from this special. So it starts narrowing it to maybe the Empire or the First Order factions, where those have a good balance of both buffs and debuffs, whereas like a faction like the Sith are not very buff heavy, but they are very debuff heavy. With the second special, I've done worse for a lot less. This is another ability with a 4-turn cooldown. We've got 2 specials now with pretty big cooldowns. Physical damage to the target deals 30% damage for each exposed triggered, stacking to a max of 300%, or 10 exposes, and that is until the ability is used. If Zorii is stealth, inflict healing immunity. If the target is exposed, stun the target. And if the ability defeats an enemy, we're looking at an AoE expose, which can't be resisted. So you will want to use this as a finishing move. The last part is the most powerful aspect here, since the AoE expose is going to just feed into the larger functionality of the entire squad. I'm less interested in the healing immunity, so I won't mind using this one if she doesn't have stealth. If there's enough expose on the target, this has the potential to be consistent, and paired with the Rose Omicron, it could even become a reliable finishing move. The unique ability, this is a Zeta and Omicron ability. There's more of us. So with this one, there's a lot of passive synergy going on here that we will take one by one. Otherwise, there's too much to process at once. If the ally is non-unaligned force user, so basically not a Ray, resistance allies have plus 100% potency, while they have more allies than enemies. So if the battle is going well, you're going to have extra potency. And they will have plus 35 speed, while they have equal or fewer allies than the enemy. So while you're equal or the battle is going poorly for you, you will have that extra speed. So this ability here, or this portion of the unique, increases the odds that expose will land and decrease some of the pressure to apply potency mods. Hopefully this means some mod flexibility, and the speed means the team starts fast out of the gate. But since you will slow down over time if the battle is going well, that's an incentive to take out the priority targets first and not the weak, easy ones. But it also means that if the battle starts poorly, the speed creates a mechanic which can turn the tide. With the next bullet, whenever Zorii uses an ability while stealthed, the ally in the leader slot and Poe gain retribution. If Poe was taunting already, he also gains crit immunity. So Finn is the better leader regardless, but this is definitely an incentive to not even try out Poe as a leader, because you're just reducing the amount of benefit that you could be getting from this portion of the unique. And it's also another moment where the timing of how you use the specials is increased in importance, because they have those big cooldowns, where if you don't wait for her to be under stealth, you lose getting the retribution, which is going to be desirable. Expose is going to be everywhere. If Finn and Poe are countering, that means more opportunity for gaining turn meter from Finn's leadership ability. The next bullet here, whenever a non-unaligned force user ally removes turn meter from an enemy, they inflict speed down. This one is not as important. It just means that under Finn lead, everyone will inflict speed down, since his Zeta leadership results in turn meter loss when exposed enemies are hit. This is going to be going on most times that you're attacking. In and of itself, the speed down is not a big deal, but combined with the turn meter removal and potentially the additional speed from the first portion of this unique, those combine into being a big effect. We're going to take these next two together since they're related, but whenever a resistance ally without tenacity up gains tenacity up, all other resistance allies without tenacity up gain it. While resistance allies have that tenacity up, when they deal damage, they have a 35% chance to inflict expose. So these two mean Rose is required. She's the only one who gives tenacity up, and the AoE tenacity up along with the expose synergy means that the expose is going to be much more reliable, because if you remember from the Finn nerf from the days of the Sith raid, the expose and the turn meter removal used to be very reliable and consistent under that Zeta. It made it one of the great early Zetas. Then it got nerfed. What this does is bring back a little bit more of that functionality, so we get to see Finn closer to how he used to perform. Now with the final bullet here before we get to the Omicron, whenever a non-unaligned forced user resistance tank taunts, they gain 15% max health, stacking for the rest of the counter. And when taunt expires, they recover 15% protection. So Zorii will make tanks tankier the more they taunt, so a fast Poe or a fast Holdo will be incentivized, since you're going to want these characters triggering that taunt frequently to make them much more of a nuisance as a tank. And now for the Omicron, and this is a Grand Arena Ami. If there are no Galactic Legend allies and all allies are resistance, and if the ally in the leader slot is non-unaligned force user, so not JTR, whenever Zorii is stealth at the start of her turn, expose all enemies without expose. Now, while you could put this Omicron on and the Rose Omicron, I think this squad is going to be good without the omis. The omis, both the Zorii and Rose, aren't going to be adding that much. They will make it better. But what those Omicrons are doing is they are increasing the damage and frequency and regularity of the exposes. And those are omis that will boost what the squad can do and make them more reliable. But I can already see this squad being a ton of fun and doing a lot of damage without the Ami investment. You can see from elsewhere in Zorii's kit alone that the exposes are going to be already fairly reliable. So the conditions in which where her Omicron is even going to be triggered may be fairly minimal. And the Finn lead alone is also going to be putting a lot of exposes on the field. So we're talking about marginal use cases in which I think this Omicron is really going to be applying those exposes. It's just going to make sure that on per turn she's going to have exposes to hit. Rose I'm actually a little bit more interested in, because what Rose is going to be doing is increasing the amount of offense and damage being done, which I think will have compounding effects with Zorii and allow them to be far more dangerous. I would definitely do the Rose Ami first, then consider this one, but this I think is in luxury Ami range. Now for the second unique Spice Runner skills, this is a Zeta ability. Now while the previous unique was all resistance synergy, this one still has resistance usage, but this is where we start to see some of the smuggler applications. Zorii gains stealth at the start, very important. It lasts for 2 turns. Smuggler allies have plus 35% accuracy and health steal. Whenever an ally triggers an expose, all allies recover 5% protection. And the first time each resistance or smuggler ally falls below 100% health, that ally gains 100% turn meter. If that ally was a non-tank, they gain protection up and stealth for 2 turns. And if that ally was a tank, they gain damage immunity and taunt. Then, if the damage immunity or stealth is dispelled, the ally recovers 100% protection. Whenever Zorii uses an ability while stealth, smuggler allies will gain role-based buffs. Those buffs being attackers gain crit damage up, healers and supports gain speed up, and tanks get critical hit immunity. I think that's fairly standard. Now this unique is nice. It's a great gift to players who've ignored the resistance, or if this squad turns out to be middling below relics. I don't think it will, but it's something that we can consider. And what this unique does is let Zorii run with smugglers. You could place her under dash, combine her with Hondo, put her under a cure lead, and the rest she can run with resistance. She won't be as dynamic with the smugglers because the first unique is going to largely not come into play, but she will be giving enough functionality that she will be a meaningful addition to at least significantly increase survivability for some of those dash or cure lead squads. So right now, the only thing that seems to be a larger need is the stealth functionality. This unique helps with that, but after the start of the battle, Zorii's stealth will be limited to her first special and a little bit to this unique because of that 4-turn cooldown, which only further incentivizes wanting to blow teams out fast before her stealth becomes less reliable. I stated at the top of the video that the synergy suggestions here are a pretty good starting point, but I think there's some nuances that we need to break down. JTR Swallow, for one, I want to address because this is something that I've been using a lot. I'm not a Ray player, but I've been able to get a lot of usage out of Swallow by pairing him with R2, and what R2 does is cause him to be a soft taunt. What you want to do is put the foresight on him, everyone else under stealth, so that he soaks up all the damage because he can't be taken out as long as JTR stays above 50% health, stays in the green. The last 2 spots though are flex spots. I just haven't wanted to use the resistance heroes there because if with Inspired, they'll force JTR to taunt, which is not what you want. Which would leave then Finn, Poe, Rose to go with Zorii, and that's a start, but even there, I think there's some things we need to address as further nuances. This is the obvious starting point. Rose, I think, needs to be there because of the tenacity synergy. What she does is on her basic, she spreads tenacity to a random ally, and through Zori's unique, everyone will then get tenacity up, and anyone with tenacity up is going to be increasing the expose, and that's all in Zori's unique. But I've also been saying throughout the video, I've been a little worried about how often Zorii will be under stealth, so we can't rule out putting R2 on this squad because R2 would help consistently keep Zorii under stealth, minimize the timing issues where we need to be considering when to use her specials, and it might even make them a little bit more effective under defense, where you could then not have to worry about how the AI is going to play things. But that messes up how I've been playing Swallow. But not all of you are Swallow players, so this is something that I think is really worth considering if you don't have Swallow unlocked yet, or if you do have Swallow but you have a GL Ray, because then that will be held in that place, and isn't really another great usage for R2 at that standpoint. Now for me, I'm not going to be using R2 unless they are awesome with R2, which means I'm probably going to be resorting to Trooper. He was in the suggestions. He has his own exposed synergy, which will be really effective. That's why he was always part of the old Finn squads before the nerf. But I think there's enough flexibility here where if I think I am going to use him, he might be the character I make slow, because there is a portion within the kit where they get more stacking damage until they take their turn. The other characters, Poe will benefit from being fast, Finn will benefit from being fast, Rose and Zorii will benefit from being fast. So Trooper, there's an option to maybe make him slow to make him a bigger damage dealer when he finally takes his turn. That's an option. Holdo, of course, another option. But because of how the tank mechanics work and how any taunting tank will get tankier and get more health as the battle goes on, even Holdo, I think, might benefit from speed. And I don't know if dual tanks is going to be necessary with this kind of squad. The thing that I do think we have to consider is maybe no tanks. Because of the smuggler synergy here, there is an option that we should consider one or both of the vets. I think if I'm selecting just one of the vets though, I'm going to go with Swallow, and we put Poe back on the squad because of how he spreads expose. He is going to have some smuggler synergy with Zorii, which will make him tankier. More survival, will take more, he'll get a bonus turn, and he has a lot of damage stacking capabilities that are nice, but he synergizes well enough with Vet Chewie that this is something that I think is worthy of testing, even though I don't think it's the way that I'm ultimately going to use these characters. And I think there's a future where we see one of the vets get an Ami, and that makes them not part of this squad. So for 5v5, if you don't have Rey and you don't have Swallow, I think R2 is the character to be placing on this squad to start. And for a player like me, I'm going to probably be using Trooper in that slot, but I will be testing out all those other versions and not necessarily going to rely on Trooper. And Trooper I will be testing out as possibly a slower character. Now for 3v3, this is the current 3v3 squad I've been using, and I'm not sure that I want to get rid of it. It works pretty well, it still gets me holds, and at relics it's even better, but you can see at gear 11 that's been good enough. But with Omicrons, I think we have to look at Rose and Zorii being placed with Finn. And the tenacity synergy with Rose is going to be good enough with spreading exposes that I'm less concerned about Poe, and that was part of the reason why I think you could look at versions eliminating Poe from this squad, because of how Rose is going to be spreading tenacity and thus throwing down more exposes onto the field. It's also why I don't think the Omicrons are as mandatory. So Finn, Rose, and Zorii could be very effective, but I think it will be much more effective with the Rose Ami because she is going to be boosting the offense, although I think either is something worth testing. If you're not going to use the resistance heroes or you haven't geared them yet because they're a little bit more expensive to gear and you don't want to use Rose, then just Poe in that slot. Finn, Poe, Zorii is the other team. But I think Finn, Rose, and Zorii are going to be a little better. But there's another scenario where if you want to maintain using the Finn Resistance Heroes combo, which I think I might do, 3v3 is where you really use Zorii as a smuggler character. The dash squads are fine, but they're not huge game changers. I think dash paired with Zorii could be effective, and really any combination of smugglers could be worthy of testing. I have dash in the slot here, but dash is also nice with L3 and Vandor. If you don't want to use dash, then even Kira with Zorii and Hondo could be effective. Zorii making Hondo even better and allowing him to get more stacks of ransom before Kira or Zorii gets taken out, and then Hondo getting unleashed. But I think that's what you'll see from me next week is me testing out Zorii in a few combinations, but definitely smugglers in 3v3, I think, is going to be one of the very viable scenarios. Now, I said earlier in the video, if you don't have the resistance characters geared up, if you're an earlier player, run her with smugglers. Dash, you should be working on. Dash is a great character, but there's a number of various smuggler squads you could be building to take advantage of Zorii early, because she's a character who, with her unique, is going to be worth throwing on a smuggler squad even at low stars, low gear. And now for our free-to-play gearing wrap-up. This is the gearing that was done on November 15th. And with this, we're looking at a lot of stars and relic levels. So you can see Bosch, we are ready to take to 4 stars. Here's where I look at with the progress on Jabba by mid-November. This is prior to the double drops on Thanksgiving, where I did make significant progress. I did a lot of extra refreshes on Bosch to get her more caught up with Lando so they could finish around the same time. I would have Jabba right now, actually, except the third sister Grand Inquisitor Detour. Now with these other characters, so we go to Savage. I already have the Omicron on him. It's excellent. I tested him at gear 12 for some testing. Very effective. Very effective there, but I wanted to take him to relics, obviously, and get maximal usage. I think I took him in stages. I might bring him up to relic 3 later in this video or not. I brought him up to relic 3, recently brought him up to relic 5. Relic 3, he's super tanky, great on defense, but the offense isn't really quite there. I wanted to take a couple extra characters up to gear 11 just to kind of finish off a number of these. Cup is just a really cheap to gear character, which is why I selected him. Just more for fun. You can see there's not too many characters left on my roster who are not at gear 11. Same deal with Scout, very cheap to gear character. Took him up to 11. I think I'm maybe 9. I'd have to count, but I'm at less than 10 now, maybe 9 at this point. Lando, same deal. I'm not sure if I do it now or later. I don't want to pull too much from other characters. Swallow, same deal as Savage, did a lot of testing at various levels. I think I leave him at gear 12 for this period, but he's a character I took up to relics soon after to get some more testing. I like to bring characters up incrementally to show how they can be used at various states and whether or not I can find, especially lower gear. I want to find as much utility at lower gear as possible. Ben Solo was one at gear 12 where he's not a damage dealer, but paired with JTR and used as a soft tank, very effective. So this largely minimal except for Savage and an extra star on Bosch. We'll wrap it up there. This marquee release delayed putting out the every 6 month single shard farm list that I do. That one will be coming up in the next day or two, but I also want to get out an LVT video on the Riva shard special mission on the territory battles, and that's a little bit more time pressing, so I might do that one first. Either of those two videos is what you'll see out soon for me, along with the Grand Arena videos. Thank you for watching. Be safe out there, everyone. Be excellent to each other. This is still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.